I'm super excited to be here today. I'm going to be focused on managing change in a Microsoft world and focusing on the Microsoft 365 governance and change management model. My name is Michelle Gilbert, and I'm a Microsoft Teams technical specialist, as well as president of the Minnesota M365 user group. So if you couldn't guess, I am from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and that's in the US. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can on Twitter, or even connect to me on LinkedIn and just let me know where we met, and that'd be great. I don't know how lucky it is that I got this, but I am sponsored today by CoreView, so thank you very much. I'm very happy to be sponsored by them today. I'm sure if you've been already at the conference, and hopefully everybody is enjoying the conference today, you've seen some of the preview slides, but mark your calendars. I can't wait. March 23rd through 25th. Hopefully everybody's going to be safe and more healthy. We can get together, come back in Las Vegas, and actually see this in person. So being able to community connect is so important. Thank you to all our generous sponsors. There's a ton of them. We really appreciate all you do. And are you ready for a raffle? We're giving away 3 Oculus Quests all in one. I'm a huge fan. Go visit your vendor booths, get in that bit.ly link. We have one at our house. Like I had mentioned, my daughter, she works out every day practically on doing Beat Saber. So there's a fishing app. There's so many really cool things about the Oculus. So hopefully someone on this call may even win. And please donate. Consider donating really to the funds for either United Way or the International Medical Corps. But I am certainly happy to say that 10% of our funds from our sponsors are going to support that community relief, which is really so important right now. All right, so I'm going to be focusing on managing change in a Microsoft world. I've done these presentations before. Certainly I've shifted it now to focus on what's new inside of Microsoft that's going to help you understand where change occurs, as well as some quick tips to get you started on governance. So we're going to really focus on operationalizing your investment, as well as walking you through how to develop a governance board, focusing on the tenant and service management, defining roles and responsibilities. That's your RACI chart. Learning how to manage change in a SaaS solution that uses an evergreen service management model. So I'm going to talk to you about what that even is. And then developing a system of communication to better support your customers. So there's all types of governance. And just to highlight here, there's solution governance, discovery, certainly security, container or containing governance. And what I want to focus on today is really about change management. This is going to be the core of what hopefully you can walk away with today, getting more understanding of, and how to learn where change occurs inside of Microsoft. So let's dive in. I'd say one of the first things to do, if you don't already have a governance board, it's never too late. I'm a big fan of making sure that all the right stakeholders are looking at all the different types of change that's occurring and making sure that they're reacting to it when they need to. So defining who the Microsoft 365 stakeholders are and bringing them into the conversation is invaluable in managing and configuring your investment. Wherever you are at in your digital transformation, it's never too late to begin governance. It frankly isn't, especially as new people come into your organization or as people shift around, making sure you have the roles defined and knowing who is doing what is really key. So here's an example of what you could do with a service management roles and responsibilities sheet. One of the first steps is defining who is the Microsoft 365 service owner. And if that term is new to you, you're not alone. This really comes from a place where there was a SharePoint admin before, and there was an Exchange admin, but really we need somebody on the whole to be the M365 service owner. And creating a RACI document to define who else in the organization is not only responsible and accountable, but also who needs to be consulted and informed when certain things occur within the product that they either support, they engineer, or They have to perform network changes. So whatever the case, take a look at this and say, okay, let's just at least do a column of what are all the products that we have and that we have a product roadmap for, that we are licensed for and that we plan to use or are using. And then who should really be a part of that? I think of Azure Active Directory. There's groups within that, and maybe you want to bring in legal to talk about group retention. And then there's Teams, which uses Azure Media Services, and you need IP or TCP configurations, so you need to bring in networking. And so what I like to do is make sure that you have a define all the people who really are responsible for those roles or accountable, or when a change occurs, really needs to be consulted or informed. And what's key here about this sheet is to make sure, if you can, have one letter or one word within each of those boxes, because that's how you spread the love within Office 365 and share that responsibility. You can also do what's called a tenant management RACI document. And this is really providing you with a good lens into what role does what and who is the owner of that role. So if you look through, you've got global admin, billing admin, exchange admin, SharePoint admin. The list goes on, right? We've added so many roles over the years. Teams admin, what is their focus and what should they be doing in order to make sure they're monitoring the change, they're realizing configuration changes because they're in there all the time, or new features that are coming, as well as monitoring how many people are in that role. So again, I think it's always good practice to make sure you have your RACI documents defined. And then along with that, of course, developing a governance board. And I've done this a couple of times in my career. And what I'd like to say here is figure out what your purpose is. In this example, really the purpose is about broadening the knowledge of all areas of Microsoft 365 through transparent service and tenant management, focusing on the ROI and adoption, with an objective to develop a process for knowledge management and a system of communication for maintaining and supporting all those technology changes. You can do this in various steps. I like to think of this as kind of a crawl, walk, run. Don't think you have to do it all in one day. And when I mean governance, I don't mean like let's just make a huge binder and then store it. This is active. These are things that you, as you develop, you're doing this on a meeting cadence. And I'll give you some best practices at the end of what you can do to have a governance board in one location and consume information. But really the crawl space is about identifying the stakeholders, educating on really what it is you even invested in. I've definitely had many meetings where networking had no idea what stream was. Pretty important to make sure they see the value in what they're making a change on the network, tying back to what the product is, and then developing a plan of action. So that's kind of how I see crawl. When I think of walk, I like to think of, let's identify, our own internal product roadmap. As a customer, what is it that you see that you want to roll out within the next 1 year, 2 year, or even 5 year plan? And then start monitoring the usage of it, putting in pilot programs, developing focus areas for those projects of implementation, and raising awareness really of those product knowledge gaps, especially to your leaders if you think you need to have more SMEs in that space, getting some training, and then developing a meeting cadence. And none of this could be done one and done, right? We need to continue to talk about it and get together with those stakeholders. And then you've got running, right? This is where you're already staying on top of change. I'm going to show you how to get to the running through this session today. And then lastly, providing visibility to executives. Nothing more than realizing a return on your investment than seeing the productivity and the efficiency out of what you've invested in. So let's define what. I'm going to talk about customer responsibility. I think it's interesting. I don't know if it's ever been delivered on a broad basis, but I'll say that there is such a thing as a Microsoft role and a customer role. And within the customer role, there are some key tasks that you should probably focus on. And really, Microsoft noted this, I would even say going back 5 years, is that the responsibility for managing change, especially in any SaaS solution, is really between your vendor and the customer. So Microsoft and the customer. But the two key things here is communicate about new features. Well, that's easy, that's simple, but well, where's the change? You need to know where that change is to know what to communicate, and then you need to know who to communicate, and then you need to know how to communicate and where to communicate. So I'm going to talk about where you can get all that great information. And then the second piece is integrating in custom software. Certainly that's something that you as a customer needs to start testing out. So a couple of pieces here. I'm going to talk about Microsoft first, and then we'll talk about the customer. But really, Microsoft's role in managing change is setting those expectations for all those service changes. That means communicating to you through the message center, putting together if there's a service health announcement, an advisory, or an issue, making sure that you are aware of it, notifying you of 30 days in advance when a change occurs that requires you to do something, and then keeping up to date as much as possible on that roadmap. The second is during a change, rolling the change out. And then specifically for the monthly channels, and we'll talk about those quite extensively here, rolling them out on a monthly basis to make sure you are getting up to date the change that we are talking about out there in blogs. And then monitoring telemetry, much like you have a service desk and you monitor how many calls were about this, how many calls were about that within your organization. We do that too at Microsoft to make sure that if there's any issues, we are escalating them. And then after a change, listening to your customer feedback to improve how we roll out change, listening in on the Microsoft Tech community and in the admin feedback tool, and then updating the roadmap to address any new features or moving dates that we needed to do. So the customer role. Now, this is different, right? This is a different way to think about it because you're not wrenching anymore on your servers. So before a change, it's understanding what to expect, making sure you're in that message center. And as a governance board, that's something that's really pivotal. Certainly having a bi-weekly meeting, 30 minutes to just go, okay, what's new? Now let's go over to the roadmap, what's new? And just taking a look to make sure that you are as up to date as you can. Setting up pilot team to preview features in the monthly channel. Reviewing and update any internal change management processes or system requirements. And then during a change, again, I'll say message center a few more times. So if you want to play a game, you certainly can by how many times I say it, but checking it and making sure, not just opening it, but there's additional information links that are really great. Taking any action required and testing add-ins if you need to. Using any internal shares for updates, downloading those latest builds, of course, and then creating tickets, much like you should be communicating out to everyone in your organization. We want you to communicate to us if there is an issue so we can make sure we help you and get through it. And then after a change, working with people in your organization to adopt it. We could talk a lot about the adoption framework, but just making sure that you have a plan in place that not only does a change occur, it's not surprising to everyone. And especially your help desk. I think of if anyone is crucial right now at that point where the change rolled out, that they already knew about it, so they're not reacting. So I like to get a little bit deeper here. Microsoft's responsibility is a lot more than making sure that the features are rolled out, the products rolled out. I mean, they're doing a lot of things, right? They're securing your data in the data center. They're monitoring service health. They're making sure the new SharePoint framework that they built is responsive. All those great things that we used to have to do, but now we don't have to because we can focus on servicing our customers. So I like to classify the customer responsibility into 3 categories. The first one is on service management. This is about monitoring change, learning where the change occurs, figuring out how to communicate the change, doing product training, and not just product training, to your end users, making sure everyone in IT or in your governance board at least has the understanding of those products that you're rolling out. And then developing a support model, the support model of you between Microsoft and you and your help desk. The next piece of that is tenant management. And this is really about you being responsible for applying your security configurations, your data and information protection, making sure you have administrative control. It's not the Wild West. You do have some control. Making sure you have identity and license access management and security and compliance, and then on top of that, monitoring all of that. So not just we clicked it. Go look at the audit logs. Think of all the different things that are happening in there, and what can you pull out to maybe do some reporting on that you want to keep an eye on. And then lastly, and certainly not least, is the ROI and adoption. This is where you're monitoring your product usage through the admin reports, right? M365 admin reports, the Teams reports, connecting your tenant to the M365 usage analytics, so you are getting the best of the best to get as granular as you can on how people are adopting the products that you are rolling out. It's also one of my favorite applications to get who are my champions in that product. I can learn my top 10, top 20 Teams channel messages, people who are doing channel messaging or chatting. So there's so much great data and great information in there. But the ROI and adoption there is that you invested. Now let's make sure people are using it, and maybe we adjust training. We determine in the analytics report that everyone over in Houston's really using Teams, but why aren't they using Teams in Seattle or something like that? Do we have to up our training over there and our awareness? And there's some other great things. Not only do you want to just invest to get to the latest and greatest and best technology that's out there, you want to decommission your on-premises systems. You want to reduce all your on-premises storage, as well as eliminating shadow IT. I can't tell you enough how many times customers have said, well, if we don't have things in place, our users are probably going to go use something. So help us ramp up to make sure that we can eliminate that shadow IT. And then on top of that, automating your security and protection policies. So let's do a little walkthrough. It's kind of interesting, but really in the past, service owners might have experienced several months or even years between service changes. And then if you skipped an update, which was quite frequent, I know I've been in companies where they did, and next thing you know, you're 8-10 years behind everyone else. But the impact was heavy, and not only for IT, for getting ramped up on the new technology, but for end users learning a new tool. In the Microsoft 365 change model, a key role really must be developed, as I've mentioned, the Microsoft 365 service owner. This new role is accountable for the services across the whole business and must be prepared to become proactive in learning where change occurs and developing a communication plan out to the organization, making those transitions easier. I kind of think of it like in our personal life and our consumption of smart devices, especially my mobile device. I have apps that update all the time. And do I think twice about them? No, I just say yes. And a lot of times I actually can't get into the app until I auto update. That's because they're trying to make it as secure as possible with the latest features and bug fixes that they have. We're doing the same thing in this continuous updates. And I like to read this quote because it's so true, but the cloud has changed the way that Microsoft designs, releases, and communicates updates. And Office 365 has shifted that IT responsibilities from server management to service management. And I think about that and I'm like, that's such a change because I lived my career in IT, and service management is really, I think, where I always wanted to be, helping our employees utilize the tools that we have in place. And really, evergreen service management, it just refers to those running services that are always up to date. So we're going to walk through a little bit of what a traditional service management looks like. In a traditional server management model, the technology capabilities are housed usually on site, and the organization purchases the hardware and software that are necessary to meet those technology needs of the business, which usually means IT running the install or the upgrade, and then performing any troubleshooting that needs to happen if something goes wrong. And I know I've been a part of them. These cycles can be over a course of years and involve certainly a lot of overhead, a lot of planning. All I can say is, thank goodness that's over, at least in my world. Introducing the evergreen service model. This is where releases are multiple cycles in a year, allowing organizations to have the most up-to-date security and technology features. We really try to focus on reducing the burden of that traditional software deployment by making the Office deployment fast and easy, making it up to date all the time, just like you'd expect from really any cloud service. But at the same time, I think we were pretty conscious to ensure this new deployment model would not impact app integration or Office customization that IT certainly needs and businesses rely on. So now that we've learned a little bit more about what that new model is, we need to probably get ramped up on where does the change occur. So I'm going to talk to you about a couple different items here. This is where I can find a change in understanding Microsoft's release models. There's two particular models I'm going to look at. The first one is Microsoft 365 apps. If you haven't heard, yes, we have changed the name again. Just when you got super comfortable with the Office Pro Plus, it's now Microsoft 365 apps. Not sure why Office keeps slipping away from things, but that's the case. So anyway, it's now Office 365 Pro Plus is now gone. Microsoft 365 apps is here to stay, and they're really called Microsoft 365 apps for the enterprise. And that's going to be starting with version 2004. One of the benefits, of course, of Microsoft 365 apps is that Microsoft provides new and updated features for Office apps on a regular basis. And in these channel groups, you can control how often the users in your organization get these new features by specifying the update channel. And we will talk a little bit more about that because there is an announcement I will be making. And then the second release model is the Microsoft 365 release options. This allows organizations to receive new product updates for M365, SharePoint Online, and Exchange Online features as they become available. You can manage how your organization receives these updates. For example, you can sign up for an early release so that your organization receives updates first, or you can designate only certain individuals to receive them. All right, let's walk through them. All right, Microsoft 365 apps for the enterprise. There are three primary update channels to talk about. Current or monthly, monthly enterprise, which is the latest update channel, and semi-annual enterprise channel. We recommend current channel because it provides your users with the newest Office features as soon as they are ready. If you need additional predictability of when these new Office features are released each month, we recommend monthly enterprise channel, as those updates are released on a set schedule, which would be the second Tuesday of a month. In my next slide, you can hopefully take a snapshot of it so you can see what you get from that. But I don't know about you, but I've been waiting for this. The moment that you can know when a change occurs and plan for it and get it on the same period of time every month. Super exciting. I know I'm excited. So in cases though where you do have select devices that do require extensive testing, whether you're in a financial industry, but you need to be more cautious, you do have semi-annual enterprise channel. Now you can select your download setting preferences in the M365 Admin Center or manage them through the Microsoft Endpoint Manager using group policy or through the Office deployment tool. So let's take a look at all the channels. Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise channels. There are a lot. But the one that I really wanted to highlight is really based on customer feedback. Probably me as a customer, I probably provided this feedback too, which is introducing monthly enterprise channel. This update channel is going to provide new Office features once a month on the second Tuesday of the month. And while we still recommend the monthly channel, which will be renamed to current channel, if you didn't catch that update, if you need a more predictable release schedule for monthly feature updates, monthly enterprise channel is that channel for you. But they will continue to have security updates and non-security updates as needed. Now, this new update channel is available as of May 12, 2020. Version 2003 is the first version of monthly enterprise channel. So it has been released by a couple weeks. Go in, check it out. And then starting on June 9th, 2020, current channel will become the default update channel for Microsoft 365 apps for enterprise, previously named Office 365 Pro Plus. And what's interesting about that is that before, semi-annual enterprise channel was the default. So if you already have a tenant, you are not going to be, it's not going to change for you. But all new tenants that get created, they're going to be using the current channel. So just to let you know, there's nothing you need to do, but we do recommend reviewing your channels and following those recommended guidelines. All right, so well, now we know we've got a new name and we've got a new channel that we should be checking out. There's also a section, and I'm not sure if it's terribly new, but if you haven't checked it out, I would definitely recommend doing it. You know, these M365 apps for enterprise are great to plan out how your organization will receive all the new features, but where do you learn where they are? And in this location is a great way to say, okay, what's new with this rolled out to this particular release? And you can go in and you can see there are a couple areas here. You can see the channel name and then the feature. So these are going to be the top features that come into that particular build or that version that you can start planning for training and sending out information. All right, at Microsoft, we develop our products and release them in rings to be tested and validated, first by the feature team, then by the entire Office 365 team. And after internal testing and validation, the next step is to have it released to all of Microsoft. And when that occurs, we have an opportunity as employees to provide feedback to say, nope, this is still a bug, throw it back, maybe reduce the ring. And there's iterations between the rings as well. But after, you know, it's hit the Microsoft Ring 2 and it's comfortable and there's been a period of time where the dust has settled and things feel pretty good, it gets released to what's called targeted release. And that's customers can opt into that. It's probably a period of time that lets you get about 2 weeks or so-ish. I don't really have a good amount of solid time period, but a good amount of time that you can test out a feature before it's rolled out to the rest of your organization. So what I mean by that is in the M365 Admin Center, there is a section called Org Settings, Organizational Profile, and Release Preferences. In here, you can either just by default have it for everyone so that everyone in your organization can get you know, the latest features right away. Or you can say, you know what, we're going to target it for select users. And that's really, you can either block it, have it for everyone, or maybe I would say your whole governance board, as we talked earlier, they should all be in the targeted release for select users. Let me share a few benefits around this. The targeted release allows the M365 service owner, admins, change managers, or anyone else responsible for the updates to prepare for those changes. And they can do that by testing and validating the new updates before they're released to everyone else. That's certainly important. Preparing user notifications and documentation before updates are released worldwide. I know that's really important. If you have different pilots that are experiencing things and they've been waiting for a new feature to come out, now you can make very targeted communication to them. Preparing your internal help desk. I can't stress enough, help desk, your service desk should be your best friend because they need to know what's happening because they're the first line of defense for all your business users. Going through the compliance and security reviews. And then use feature controls where applicable to control the release of updates to your end users. All right, so we've certainly talked a lot about governance, who should really be a part of it. Now I kind of want to shift a little bit to where. Really, the Message Center is the primary channel for Microsoft to communicate changes relevant to your specific tenant. Inside of here, they are categorized by prevent or fix issues, plan for change, and stay informed. And each category message helps you identify and inform you of all your changes. They are also ranked by high importance. I have an FAQ here. A few call outs on the FAQ page. I wanted to include it just to make sure you could see that the Message Center is there. That doesn't mean it has to be for the global admin. There is a new role in the last year called Message Center Reader role. That person can read and share the regular messages in it, get a weekly email digest, and then you can send it to a shared mailbox if you want. If English is not your first language, you do have definitely translation. Can you preview them? Sometimes you can preview the change. And can you get exact dates? No, not really, but definitely it's a ballpark. Are the messages specific to your organization? Absolutely, hands down. I mean, that's really, it's curated to what you are licensed for. So you're not going to get things that are, in a product that you don't even own. And then, yes, again, I'm reiterating, you can get an email digest of those posts. So if you're thinking what I'm thinking, what can you do with an email digest? You could maybe turn that or convert that with Power Automate into something that you can consume, maybe in a different way. So just some ideas there. All right, so other ways you can find change are through the direct Microsoft customer channels. And I can't stress enough how important it is to review the Message Center on a weekly basis to stay current. And you can even bring them with you on your mobile app. The Microsoft 365 Admin mobile app lets you view settings, perform core tasks, receive notifications, add users, reset passwords, and manage devices. So you can do a lot from there, including even creating a support request. The next, following Office What's New, to understand what's in your M365 apps for enterprise. And then, of course, the Service Health Dashboard. This is where every service desk manager should have access to this dashboard and just have it open. I'd say, get a big monitor in your, in your department where your service health team or service desk team lives, and just have it up and have that Service Health Dashboard just up there so you can see. So it's not a surprise or, hey, I don't have access. I didn't know, oh, Exchange has been down or there's been an issue. Having that visible is so important. The next one is service request, the ability to create a service request, track your issues, rate within your M365 Admin Center. User voice, that is Microsoft's feedback loop, where you can provide as customers suggestions on what you want to see for within your business of latest features. There might be a little rumor, you may already know, but the more votes that an item gets, the quicker it's going to get to the product group's desk to start working on it. Hence how private channels was able to roll out. And then we've got M365 blogs. I would definitely recommend reading those blogs. It's really crucial to learn a lot of the details of what's going to be coming out. And then the Microsoft 365 roadmap. I really can't stress enough how important it is to monitor that roadmap, keep an eye on where items are of interest in their development process. And you'll also learn that each item has a roadmap ID. You may not have realized, actually, That ID connects back to communications in your message center. So when you open a message center, you may get an additional link. You may even get a roadmap ID number that's connected. So as the roadmaps are occurring, then the messages are happening into your tenant. A few other callouts. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I will talk to you a little bit about the community communication channels. Now, the first one I want to talk to you about is Microsoft MVPs. And they're really the technology experts that are all over the world who passionately share their knowledge and are really exceptional community leaders. You can go into or just Bing Microsoft MVPs and see them by region. And what I would recommend is trying to connect with somebody who's closest to you. Follow them on Twitter, learn about their activities, because as you click on them, you can see what they're working on. The next one is O365 Community. That's going to be a forum that you can go into, join a community for best practices and the latest news. Then, of course, we've got the Champions Program. That's the Office 365 Champion Program. It exists to support you with all your regular communication, connection to peers, thought leaders, and really a center of gravity for all your Office 365 education. The next one is Twitter, at Office 365, at Microsoft 365, at Microsoft Teams. Those are headed by Microsoft folks. And when there's new things that are coming out that may not land on the roadmap because they're too small, but they're really great to hear about, they're probably going to get hit on Twitter first. So if you don't follow that yet, I would definitely recommend it. Then you've got Coffee in the Cloud. That is a YouTube show focused on productivity in the Microsoft 365 suite, highly popular. Office Flash Friday. This is a great place it's a weekly broadcast from the Microsoft Technology Center architects where employees and guests cover all the latest updates in the productivity space. And then O365A, those are my friends to the north. Those are MVPs focused on the latest and greatest development in the cloud. And then the last one is Regarding 365. This is a YouTube show with live interviews and topics focused on M365. So as far as community communication channels, there are a lot out there. These are the ones that I really love, that I like to follow. But now let's move on and talk about defining our plan. One of the first things in communication is figuring out what are our vehicles. Who or how do people want to consume information in our organization? You could do it in Teams. Certainly you put it on your SharePoint intranet. May not make sense if that was really intended for really the help desk. Department meetings, staff meetings, it's always a great place to share these changes. Of course, to the governance board. So multiple channels, but really what and who to communicate. And this is about grouping your communication types. Much like they do in the message center for Plan for Change or Stay Informed, there might be security updates. Well, if you have security updates, chances are your security team may want to know an update's coming. What is it for? Why is it here? New applications. You may need a new service owner for that application, or you may have to say, hey, SharePoint admin, can you take on this new tool? And then get ramped up on that. And besides grouping the communication type, now it's, well, okay, we need to deliver it. And really, who do we deliver it to? Who's that targeted group? Are they people that are in the new monthly channel group? Is it a pilot group that we need to specifically talk to? Or by chance, is it the service desk? And they need to know something critical just to handle maybe an influx of help desk calls. So whatever it is, being able to connect what type of communication it is, and then to deliver that communication to that appropriate communication vehicle and audience. So here are some quick tips you can do to operationalize change. Create channels focused on topics, geared toward the audiences, and automating the communication by adding tabs. If you can't see here, I kind of gave you a bonus tip. This is really a Microsoft team. The team name is M365 Governance, and then we have channels. And within these channels, we can start saying, hey, let's put our roadmap in here. Let's put our RACI document. Let's put our governance board purpose, our objectives. Let's include all the stakeholders in the channels, in the appropriate channels. Let's put our Office 365 Service Health as an iframe. Let's add user voice as a tab. Let's bring our security people in here as well. So not only that, but have a monitoring area for all your usage. Bring in those reports. So Power BI, M365 usage analytics. But this is one quick way, bringing everyone into the conversation, but then one place and one-stop shop to consume all the change that occurs. Right here, I've got an RSS feed of all that change. You can even bring in all the announcements in the message center into this team. So we learned who our stakeholders are to develop a strong governance board. We define roles and responsibilities for service and tenant management. We learned what Microsoft and the customer roles are, and then where to find change in an evergreen service management model. We now know we need to review the M365 apps channel groups, now that we've learned that, and release options, as well as, again, the message center, being the primary resource for learning about direct communication from Microsoft on where and when change occurs, and how we should identify our communication vehicles by grouping all of our communication types and delivering that communication. And a bonus tip, use Teams to manage change. Thank you so much for joining us on Managing Change in a Microsoft World through Governance and Change Management. Please go ahead and fill out the speaker feedback. I would love to hear from you, what you learned, what you would like to see next, and the event feedback. So thank you very much. Do you have any questions, Carl?
There is one question. Thanks for the session, really useful. And there is one question from Robert, who is there a service health dashboard read-only role, he says.
A service health dashboard read-only? I'm going to probably say you might want to look at global reader role. So global reader role came out, I believe we announced it at Ignite of last year. But basically it's like window shopping. You don't have the keys of the kingdom, but you can see all the configurations and how it's configured. I recommend every architect have a global reader role. I also recommend anyone who is has a role that does change, that you add the global reader role to your regular account. Then you don't have to always check in, check out, maybe your privileged role, and you can see into things. Because how often do we need to make a change? It's more like we need to see the change, and then probably as a governance or as a group or as a team, make the decision if that toggle switch needs to shift.